All right, I'm going to call our June board meeting to order. My name is Rick Cruz. I am chair of the Public Charter School Board. This evening, I am joined, starting from my right, your left, by Ricardo Ganjam, Steve Bumbaugh, Saba Barreda, our vice chair, and to my left, Leah Crucy, and our executive director, Scott Pearson. Naomi Shelton is on vacation, so she will not be joining us, but we do have a proxy vote from her, so I will refer to that as we go across this evening's meeting. So as typical, we will start with public comment and then open a number of items for a public hearing. So to begin with public comment, I know I have a few names here. There may be a few additional individuals who'd like to make a public comment. So I'm going to invite 3 people at a time to come up. And when you start, please state your name. You have 2 minutes to deliver your comments. If there's any additional comments you'd like to make, or if you'd like to leave us with a hard copy of your comment, you can either do that by giving it to us or a member of our staff, or sharing your written comment at publiccomment@dcpcsb.org. So I will start. I have 3 names to start with here. Sharika Davis, Joshua Wiley, and an ANC member, Sandra Phillips Gilbert. If the 3 of you, if you are here right now, you can join us. Certainly, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you just want to hit the button and then state your name, and you can start.
Is it this one?
Yes, right there. Perfect.
Sandra Phillips Gilbert, ANC Commissioner 6A07 in the Rosedale community. Yes, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I didn't get a chance to come when you discussed Monument Academy, and so I just wanted to make sure that I have some input and that I can address some concerns that my community has, as well as the commission. And I'll just start off by, let's see, here. Okay, I just want to make sure that as you deliberate and propose whether Monument Academy will remain open, or if there will be an exchange, another charter school will take it over. I want to make sure that the community is a part of the process, that it is a fair and transparent process moving forward. When we initially went through this process, my community, in 2014, there were grave concerns. It started out including the community, and when it got to the final step of selecting the charter school we felt would best meet the needs of the community, my community was intentionally left out. We wanted a school that dealt with unique education, vocational training, GEDs, all of those things. My community has a lot of people that are at risk and high risk, and we felt, even though children that are at risk and high risk deserve to be educated, we felt placing it in the community was compounding the problem. And so we felt that it wouldn't be a success, Monument Academy. We didn't feel they had the proper staff, training. We felt that they really needed something more proven. And here we are today, discussing the grave concerns. I've read in the paper over 1,800 citations and 42 sexual assaults. Those are really concerning. And what is more upsetting for me is that when you try to work with the school within your community, you find out about what's going on when you see the news. I try to work with the school. But I just want to hit some other points before I get to that, because what I gave you is some of the examples of what I endured as an ANC commissioner and what my community had to endure. You will see pictures of large trash roll off with debris, dead animals, biohazards, trash. Is this where our children that are at risk and high risk deserve to be educated? Those photos are in the rear area where their bedrooms were. And this lasted for months, not a week, but months. And when I invited the mayor's MOKers to assist me in documenting the concern, one of the staff hollered and screamed from the window with children observing and came out, and really we felt very afraid for our livelihoods. He directly was attacking me about that. And what I did is I wrote a letter, and the response from Ms. Bloomfield is attached. So you just read that, please. I would appreciate if you look at everything I'm saying. I don't want to take up your time, but our children are important. We need schools that can meet their needs, but we must make sure that our children are protected as well as the community we live in. And there's another letter that I attached, and it deals with zoning from my 6A commission. The school is in an R4 district, and it required proper zoning because it provided services to what was defined in zoning as youth residential care home. When you have children under 18 and you have them in a facility, you have to make sure that you're in the proper zoning. And I felt that Monument Academy, my commission felt that we didn't have, that they were not in a proper zone. We had reached out to the zoning administrator, Matt LeGrant, and he never responded. And we did this several times in 2 years. So that tells me that somebody looked to the side while our children were placed in a facility that wasn't properly zoned. So as you deliberate and discuss who's going to take over, or is it going to remain a boarding school, please see if it's in violation of any zoning laws in the district, because the previous years, no one cared to find out. But I think we really need to make sure that we are protecting the public as well as our children.
Thank you, ma'am. We will be sure.
I think I have 5 minutes, right?
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 more minutes? I thought ANC.
Oh,
I thought ANC had 5. I know you don't want me to be up here longer, but the public needs to hear this. They really do. Okay. Yes. Okay. And matter of fact, Mr. Cruz, we did talk.
Yeah. I remember
at the mayor's tea, and I forewarned you that this was a problem a couple of years back. I wasn't just talking. I was serious about what was happening in my community. There are children that are running loose in the community. They've been barred from the community center. It's just crazy. So what I like to see is that, number one, as you move forward, that my community and that I will know what is the process, what is the fair and transparent process. Because I want to make sure the individuals that now want to take the school over or want to work out some deals, that was the initial charter school we wanted, that would provide vocational resources and education to the community. So if Monument is not going to move forward, we would love to see a vocational school that can provide those services. Thank you, and this won't be the last time you'll see me. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna be on top of this because it's so important to the community. And I appreciate you looking into this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So please state your name, and then you have 2 minutes.
You're okay. My name is Joshua Wiley, and I'm here to discuss some concerns that are raised about Achievement Prep Public Charter School. And I quote, "It's not necessarily legal, but it's what we did today," end quote. This is from a meeting that the CEO, Chantel Wright of Achievement Prep, said to senior leadership team as she instructed them to deny access to education for special education students. On January 4th, which is the first paper you have, quote, "At least 4 times a week, a scholar is locked in a room with empty bookshelves and tables where he throws tantrums, urinates, undresses, and thrusts his body violently against hard objects while adults stand outside and look on. Other students can hear him screaming at the top of his lungs. This has been witnessed by staff and scholars alike," end quote. The Public Charter School Board Senior School Advisor found no incident in her announced investigation and walkthrough on February 7th. In early March, I provided OSSI with the same information. Excuse me. On May 3rd, a letter of decision was sent to Achievement Prep stating non-compliance under IDEA through documentation and interviews. This is an ongoing issue at Achievement Prep. On May 14th, a teacher, quote, "grabbed a student by the shirt and pushed him into the classroom book cart, then lifted him up and threw him into the hallway and caused a kindergarten special ed student to hit his head," end quote, which caused injuries that needed to be medically assessed. Teachers were instructed by the CEO to not report this incident, which negates the underlying principles of being a mandated reporter. The teacher returned to work to teach in the same capacity approximately 3 days later. Based on these reasons, it's evident that children's safety and well-being is not a priority for Achievement Prep. Therefore, their leadership and governing body are not fit to provide a quality education for children of our city. I am requesting, as a lifelong educator and advocate for equality, that this gross disservice to scholars be investigated without prejudice and rectified with deliberate speed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Riley, you're on staff, so I don't know if I missed that. You're on staff at Achievement Prep or had been on staff?
Not currently, I have been.
You
Yes.
had been on staff, okay.
For this school year.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do anyone have any questions for me?
Not at this time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other public comment at this time? Please come up. And again, please state your name, and then you each have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Marta.
Urquia. I'm a Ward 4 resident, longtime resident of Washington, D.C., and I'm here to give comment on Monument Academy. As a district resident and as someone who has long been an advocate of public options in the district, including charters, I was a reviewer of some of the flagship charters in the mid-90s. My children attend a public charter school. I have concerns about what I have seen happen over recent weeks and months regarding Monument. And my concern there is more global to how the city, and in this case, this board, is attending to the needs of populations such as those that enroll at schools like Monument. I understand that Monument is one of 3 alternative schools within the charter universe in DC, and what has transpired here is of great concern to me, and by that I'm referring to what looks like not a coherent or an approach to the process that was transparent and consistent in terms of allowing decisions that belong to the LEA to be made by the board of that LEA and what the role of this board is with respect to those decisions. There is a proposal on the table for a merger with Friendship Public Charter School that was not disclosed when the local board brought forth a decision. That decision has been before this body as well, and that was not transparent. And it contradicts some of the safety concerns that I've heard on the 1,800 citations that were mentioned previously and that are reported in the the Washington Post, those are in fact infractions regarding student behavior that are documented over 24-hour cycles versus typical 6-hour-a-day cycles, and they range in everything from children cursing to children walking off the grounds without authority. And fact of the matter is the District of Columbia offers no guidance or framework for data collection. My interest here is in seeing that this proposal with Friendship be duly considered in recognition that any improvements that Monument may be in need of can be offered through this arrangement, given that Friendship has, I think, jurisdiction over a quarter of the charters that we have here, and there is strong capacity there. And I have a larger question about what is happening to the children and the young people of the District of Columbia who have special learning needs, and who are we pawning them off to, and who stops passing the buck from the individual local school board to this body, to our city council, to OSSI, to DME. We have a population of children who are homeless, who are in need of interventions and support, and I would like us to duly consider the proposal on the table with merit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. My public comment today is regarding the general PMF business rule of PMF business rule practice of imputing zeros for missing data. Our concern today is the staff's inconsistent utilization of imputing zeros, a practice not recommended by accountability experts for students with extenuating circumstances who are unable to test. For the PARC assessment, staff does not impute zero nor ask for documentation for students without a valid test score so long as 95% of the students have tested at the school. However, for K2 growth assessments, there is a mandatory and thoroughly untenable 100% participation rate for both the pre and the post test, and any student missing one of those two tests is given a zero and included in the PMF metric calculation. Similarly, in high school, a student who misses the PSAT or SAT testing dates for extenuating circumstances is continued to be counted as a zero. In April, Ramona Edelin and I met with the NWA's Senior Accountability Research Scientist, Dr. Nate Jensen, the NWA that does the MAP test that we use, to learn more about what are the national best practices around dealing with missing assessment data due to factors both inside and outside the school's purview. And according to Dr. Jensen, the practice of imputing zeros will, quote, bias the summaries of student performance over the course of the year. We do not recommend imputing zeros, and that is not our practice at NWA. From a best practice standpoint, imputing zeros is not good from an accuracy and face validity perspective. No other states and systems use this as a policy. We, NWA, want schools to implement sound testing practices and not force them to test students who are not ready to test for whatever reason. PCSB can and should have a policy when a school fails to meet the standard 95% participation rate that exists across most school accountability systems in the U.S. The most common consequences for not meeting participation requirements across the country include withholding funding, which is outside the PCSB purview, point deductions on overall accountability scores, and lowering the school's accountability rating. We recommend staff convene each PMF task force to discuss a new policy to address the current inconsistent application of imputing zeros and apply it effective immediately. Thank you.
Could you state your name?
Josh
Booth, the
Booth,
record.
Executive Director of Empower K-12.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other public comment this time? We'll have another public comment moment at the start of the public meeting as well. If not, Terry, would you like to come up? Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm just... No offense, Alyssa.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Noth, Senior Specialist on the School Quality and Accountability Team. This is a public hearing on Capital City Public Charter Schools' request for a small enrollment ceiling increase of 20 students effective for school year 2019-20. The school wants to ensure it is able to maintain full enrollment without going over its enrollment ceiling when Capital City backfills from its waitlist to fill vacant seats left by students in non-public placements. To date, no public comment has been received, and a representative from the school is here to answer your questions.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinstein. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Capital City Public Charter School.
Do you have any opening
No,
remarks?
we submitted the application, and that contains the statement.
Excellent. This one's both pretty straightforward and a pretty small increase. Is there any questions, Ricardo?
How did you come to the number 20? How do you know that that's enough?
We overestimated. Right, over the last several years, we've had approximately 990 to 993 students in seats in the building on count day. But the number of non-public placement students had increased over the last few years from 4 to 6 and we were concerned as we were looking at opening up slots in our existing grade levels, not knowing whether there would be any additional non-public placement students, that we could get caught over-enrolling or under-enrolling our in-seat population if the number of non-public placement students increased this year. As we started to think about that issue, we also looked at our successful retention of high school seniors through graduation, and our graduation rate since our first class in 2012 has increased from 40 students to 65 students, dropped to 60, but we have 78 seniors re-enrolled for next school year. And so we're still accepting students each grade level at roughly the same levels that we have in the past to maintain that pipeline to graduation, and don't want to increase class sizes, but we want to make sure that as our senior class retention increases that we're covered. So assuming an increase of 5 or so non-public placement students beyond what we have now, and an increase of 10 to 15 in our senior class, we figured we wouldn't have to come back to ask again if we said 20.
As we look across the criteria, the school met all of the criteria, save for subgroup performance. If you could say a little bit about the school's plans, both a little bit about the subgroup performance and then also what the school is doing to continue to improve on that.
I will start by apologizing for not being our expert in that subject matter, but we have an incredibly diverse population at our school, and subgroup size criteria has impacted the results that we get. If we only have a couple of students in a certain subgroup and they don't perform the way they do, that can come back in a way or be flagged as a problem. But that said, that's not the case for the specific groups noted here. We are working on a new strategic plan for the next 3 years. We're in the 3rd year of our prior strategic plan that highlighted previously working with our English language learners, with our special education populations, and our new plan moving forward will do the same. In our 3rd year, we have added math specialists in each grade. We've added mental health professionals and counselors beyond the ones that we already had for each of our schools, and are aggressively planning around and targeting those populations.
Any more questions? All right, thank you. So this is up for vote at the next meeting along with most of these other items for the public hearing. Great. Thank you. DCI?
While they walk up, I'll get started. So this is a public hearing on DC International's request to amend its graduation requirements. The school created 4 different graduation pathways that students may choose from in order to graduate. Each pathway meets or exceeds the requirements dictated by the state. As the only open admission, tuition-free IB public school in the District of Columbia, DCI uses the IB curriculum to achieve its mission, which is to inspire inquiring, engaged, knowledgeable, and caring secondary students who are multilingual, culturally competent, and committed to proactively creating a socially just and sustainable world. The internationally benchmarked requirements for both the IB diploma program and IB career-related program are known to be among the most rigorous requirements in the world today, and due to the rigorous requirements of that curriculum, students on either IB graduation pathway will have to take IB-specific courses such as theory of knowledge and year-long art courses in place of electives. To date, no public comment has been received, and the school is here to answer your questions.
Thank you. If you introduce yourselves and then if you have any opening remarks.
My name is Ashish Mishra. I'm the Chief Academic Officer at DCI, or District of Columbia International School.
I'm Luis Posolina. I'm one of the board members.
And parent as well. I'll throw that in. I'll just say I think the summary really got at the nitty of what this is fundamentally about. But our own graduation requirements require students to take 2 additional world languages at the international baccalaureate level, junior and senior year, in addition to the DC requirements. In addition, our students are required to take IB theory of knowledge, which is an introduction to epistemology. I don't know about you, but I did not study that in high school, and we're very proud of the level of rigor of that course. They do that for 2 years, junior and senior year, for the IB diploma program. In addition, in 10th grade, they complete a personal project. They're also required to participate on top of the 100 community service hours that we require and DC requires. They complete an IB requirement called creativity, activity, and service, where not only are they required to do the community service, but they're required to reflect in a public way about the impact that they've had on their community, as well as the ethical issues involved with community service. In the career-related program, students also take 2 additional world languages as a graduation requirement internally that we have for junior and senior year, and then take the end of course IB diploma program exams, which are at the many universities give college credit for. In addition to that, they have a course in 10th grade, a course in 11th and 12th grade called Personal and Professional Studies, where they also examine ethical questions within their career field that they're studying. In our case, it's computer programming and computer hardware. And then at the end, also the career-related students do what's called an IB middle years program personal project at the end of the 10th grade. Point I'm making is that there are significant additional requirements, which is why this proposal would allow us to have the breadth to meet those requirements.
Thank you for this. I would just like you maybe to explain, I think you mentioned all students have to take theory of knowledge, is that right?
So we have 2 pathways for juniors and seniors.
Okay.
At the end of 10th grade, 100% of our students grades 6 through 10 are in the IB middle years program. Then at the end of grade 10, they choose either to be full International Baccalaureate Diploma program students or International Baccalaureate career-related students, where the career students are doing IB courses in most core subjects, but they're also taking NAF courses in computer science or computer programming. I should be very clear. We have a very, very small group of students, I can count on one hand, currently in the junior class, that if they're, and this is actually stated in our charter as well as our current graduation requirements, if they're at risk for not graduating on time, they may not be taking one of those 2 paths. However, all of their core classes are at the International Baccalaureate level.
That's kind of what I was going to go towards. How will you make sure you don't end up with tracking, essentially, that you have some kids going for this very high, rigorous diploma while other kids are doing sort of base level requirements?
Great question, and that our fundamental charter is built on not sorting students based on adults' perceptions of their abilities. So in the way we solve that problem is in 11th and 12th grade, the only classes offered at the core level, English, world language, social studies or history in our case, science, as well as mathematics, are International Baccalaureate Diploma Program courses. Those are the only courses we offer.
And I think I remember from previous hearings, some of those classes are offered in students' native languages. Is that correct?
In the middle years program, we offer courses in the three languages that we offer, Spanish, Mandarin, Chinese, and French. So we do offer electives grades 6 through 10 in those languages, as well as arts courses, and all of our middle school social studies courses are taught in those 3 languages, in addition to English for students that come in without a background in those languages.
So if you're an EL high school student in 11th grade, how are you accessing those core IB courses?
So we have a strong support model in place. Our absolute outstanding Director of Student Support Services, Melody Maitland, and our team ensures that students receive that support. We have special educators collaborating at the diploma program level, which is rare in the traditional tracking model in U.S. education. And we have a strong team of teachers to support L students through the program.
Do you have a sense of what percentage of your rising seniors are on track for the IB diploma? Not the career
Pull up
ones, but
the
the
exact
IB.
statistic for you, but I don't have it off the top of my head. There are definitely, I'd say, less than currently. I don't want to throw out this number without actually looking it up. I don't know if I could answer an email after the fact, but
more than half. More than half on track.
Substantially more than half. I'd say 90% off the top of my head are currently on track.
To earn the IB diploma or IB career or all?
Both those pathways. You know, I was part of our leadership team. We met at the end of the third quarter. We've been working with these students all year, but we had intervention meetings with all the families who were at risk, and I'm very proud to say a majority of those students met our requirements for the last quarter and passed their classes to move on to the next grade.
So the reason I ask is because we often have schools that talk about IB curriculum, but when it comes time for graduation, we see very few IB diplomas. I don't know what an IB career pathway diploma is, and I'm not disparaging it, but I really am curious to see. I'm hopeful that there's going to be a significant percentage of students who are graduating next year with actual IB diplomas. That's why I posed the question.
Great question. We're very hopeful for that as well. I don't want to I have a number in my head, but it is based on data, but I don't want to throw that out because it will be when the students take the exams. I can say for the last 18 years, I've been involved with the International Baccalaureate outside of DCI. I used to work for the International Baccalaureate Organization, and I can say very confidently that we will have students pass and receive the IB diploma, though having worked for the IB and consulted with lots of IB schools around the country, schools' worst pass rate in their entire history as an international baccalaureate school is the first year. And schools across the board, leading schools, should show substantial growth as they grow as international baccalaureate world schools.
So I think we would love to see that data and follow up. A follow-on question to what my colleague just mentioned is, in addition to additional pathways, what have you put in place to, if I can use the word, strengthen the IB diploma experience as you've seen the first class, which is not surprising to have some challenges as you've grown up the program. So what is working? What have you put in place to strengthen that experience?
We have definitely recognized that the first question, that strong supports are necessary. We have a strong support team in place for special education and L learning needs. So we are continuing to reevaluate that, increase our staffing in that area, and recognize the degree to which team teaching is necessary through graduation at the IB diploma program level. We're also looking at, we have adjusted our schedule from this year to next in order to have time during the school day out to allow our teachers to have intervention with students outside of class time within their contract hours. Point I'm getting at is we recognize that a significant percentage of our students need more time outside of the regular instruction to ensure that they're showing proficiency on the IB assessments, and we recognized that our current schedule needed to change to give teachers the space and time to work with those students more than they already are.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you. And now Terry.
Good evening. My name is Giselle Romero. I'm a student and board member of Brea Public Charter School.
My name is Christine McKay, and I'm the Executive Director of Brea Public Charter School.
And I'm Terry Quinn, Senior Manager for the School Quality and Accountability Team. This is a public hearing to discuss Brea Public Charter School's charter amendment request to relocate its Mount Pleasant site from its current facility on Newton Street Northwest in Ward 1 to a new location at 4300 13th Street Northwest in Ward 4. Given the school is currently looking for a permanent location for its Mount Pleasant site, this relocation is intended only for school years 2019-20 and 2020-21. However, the school could remain at the new site beyond school year 2020-21. To date, we have not received any public comment, and obviously you have representatives from the school to answer any questions you may have.
Well, the Brea community is very sad to move from Bancroft Elementary School. We are very extremely grateful for the continued support from DCPS over the past 25 years. In particular, Claudia Luján and Teresa Villoni has been instrumental in assisting us during this time of transition, giving us the opportunity to return to the swing space at Sharp Health School, where we will co-locate with the West Elementary School. Additionally, we are extremely grateful to Scott Pearson and Naomi for their support during this process. We look forward to continuing to partner with DCPS during our search to find a new permanent home for Brea to support all families in DC. Thank you.
You can share just we have all the detail in the document, but just a little bit of context of how we came to where we are today, and maybe a little bit more in your own words about what the plan is in the short term, and then the hopes for the long term.
We started at Bancroft Elementary School many years ago. Before Brea was a charter school, we were part of DC Public Schools, and so we started at Bancroft in 1990 and have a long history of being able to provide services to parents and young children at Bancroft. And as the community has changed, there has been an increase in enrollment at Bancroft, which is a very good thing for Bancroft. And we found the need to find a new location. DC Public Schools, as Giselle said, has been very, very helpful in finding ways to work together to be able to continue to serve families, both DCPS and charter families. So we are moving into the swing space at Sharp as we look for additional space in the years to come with DC Public Schools.
We have a fairly unique model that has been lauded by many. As you think about the space needs, are any specific configurations that you need to support or redevelop as you move into the space?
Yes, because we work with not only adults but also young children, especially infants and toddlers. We're always looking for spaces that have first floor space, and that's why Sharp is such a wonderful location for us, because it's all one level, which is very important. And then we also really always try to follow our community, our students, and so looking for space that's close to the students that we serve is very important.
What has been the response from students and families in Mount Pleasant side to this, the news of the change?
The response of the students at the beginning, they was very sad because for many years we are feeling part of bankrupt. Most students are parents for bankrupt, but after talk with others, so move to shop. They received with good attitude to move over there because 2 years ago we was there, and also the families is thinking it's actually accessible place like metro station, or they can work this close to their homes. Also they can use public transportation. So now I'm very excited to move, but also we prefer to hopefully have a permanent place, not only for 2 years and later relocate another place.
Thank you. Thank you for your service on the board and the school as well. No more questions?
You will vote on this You will vote on this next month.
Thank you.
Next up is Digital Pioneers.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Michelle Ashton, the founder and principal of Digital Pioneers Academy. Good to see you all.
We also have another representative by phone. Nima, will you please introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Nima Sarkis from Digital Pioneers Academy as well.
This is a public hearing to discuss Digital Pioneers Academy Public Charter Schools charter amendment request to relocate its campus from 2220 Brand Avenue Southeast in Ward 7 to 709 12th Street Southeast in Ward 6. If this request is approved, Digital Pioneers will move over the summer. To date, we've received only one public comment from the local ANC, which the school has already addressed directly. And obviously we have representatives present and by phone to answer any additional questions you may have.
Any opening remarks?
It's been an amazing founding year. Appreciate all of y'all's support. I think this move was kind of anticipated in many ways, but sad for us because we've had a great partnership with the East Washington Heights Baptist Church and have really rooted ourselves in Southeast. And as the pastor there has reminded me, we're just on a journey, and that's something that we take pretty seriously because we want to continue to serve students and families who need us the most, particularly students who live east of the river. And as we explored options that will allow us to grow, we actually engaged our students and our families in that discussion. And in fact, they were strongly in favor of this option because it would allow us to be by ourselves. We have a partnership with Tyler. We actually have 5 students from Tyler's parent representatives there know our school, and we're strong advocates. So we're incredibly optimistic that we'll be able to continue to serve the same students and families and more, as well as continue the partnerships that we've established and maintain the ones east of the river as well as at the new location. One more thing I'll say is we did not lose any families. So we have, of our returning 7th graders, we have 113 of 120 who are fully enrolled and are returning next year. We've already even accepted, we have, I think, 85 students on the wait list for 7th grade, and we've already accepted students who have lost those seats. The students who are not returning, none of them have to do with the location.
So I would start off by saying I'm very sad that you're moving from down to my house and that you're moving out of our community.
It's just a journey.
Yes, maybe you'll move back one day. I am curious, I know that it said that you're offering bus services and that not many families have signed up. How are people dealing with this change if they're not taking advantage of that?
Yeah, so we outlined all the public transportation options. In fact, it's only a 7-minute more longer bus ride for many of our families, and there are actually increased options through public transportation as well as Metro. So many families, and we have probably a little bit less than a third who are a drop-off. Some were walkers, but a lot of them use public transportation. And so really, many of the families said it's just on their way to work, which was convenient.
I don't think you mentioned, you didn't talk about your school model as part of your introduction,
Oh,
but maybe you
yes.
could talk about how the build out or what you'll need to do with regard to construction that's related to your unique model.
Sure. So we're currently occupying about 4,000 square feet, and this space will allow us to occupy about 40,000 square feet. So that will allow us to be at full capacity for our middle school. There's also lots of opportunities for us to continue our specialized theme of computer science. This last year we offered robotics. We will continue to do that. We'll continue to offer computer science. We're also very much committed to serving all kids, which will allow us to have more small breakout rooms, smaller group settings that will allow us to just continue to differentiate instruction and serve kids and families really well. It does have some limitations that it doesn't have. Well, we didn't have a gym or field before, and so this space doesn't have a gym or a field. And so we'll continue to identify partners and work in the surrounding communities to be able to increase the physical activity for our scholars. It's very similar to what we did in our current location.
You can use Tyler A.
Yeah, that's where we hope. There's going to be a new principal there, so we're in contact with the district around those changes. So we're optimistic that a partnership will be able to establish, and we'll be able hopefully to at least use the field.
Do you anticipate any construction having to happen?
So right now, as you know, the shop is currently a building, so we could walk in there effective July 1 and it'd still be fine. But we do plan to do, I would say, slight cleanup in terms of just paint, floors, and making sure the lockers work. But we don't plan to do anything that requires a permit or any major change, just really kind of cleaning it up and making it DPA-atized.
Having visited the school when we almost needed a hard hat, and then having visited early on, and then again a couple of times this year, one of the things that was really noticeable in the conversations with the pastor and with community members is the engagement that you did very successfully.
Yep.
What does that look like as you're moving into this new community? You mentioned some public testimony that we've gotten that you've resolved, so just share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think we'll continue to do the same thing that we did in Ward 7 and 8, which is engage our parents, engage our partners, listen, take feedback. It's been great to actually talk to the Chavez folks. They've kind of given us some of the concerns that they experience. I think this was anywhere, which is just students walking around in safety, and so we've already talked to our parents about helping with dismissal and arrival and safe transfer going to public transportation. Those are things we'll continue to do, and I think our parents will still be partners, and we'll still continue to have partnerships across the river, primarily because at least for these next 2 years, 98% of our kids still live in Ward 7 and 8, and so they'll still be home in Ward 7 and 8, and so we're going to maintain the partnerships and make sure that our partnerships just continue to grow.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Next up is Lee Montessori.
We're coming in force. Good evening, I'm Chris Pescassi, Executive Director of Lee Montessori Public Charter Schools.
Good evening, Alex Brown, at School for Lee Montessori Public Charter Schools.
This is a public hearing to discuss Lee Montessori Public Charter School's amendment request to operate its second campus, Lee Montessori Public Charter School East End, at 2501 Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue Southeast in Ward 8. The school currently operates its existing campus, the Brookland campus in Ward 5. If this request is approved beginning this fall, LEAD plans to operate both campuses in Brookland in Ward 5 and the proposed new location in Ward 8. To date, we have not received any public comment, and representatives can answer any questions you may have.
Kick it off with anything to say? So I think this should be a pretty non-controversial topic. We're really excited about the space that we are moving into. Crushed that it's only for 1 year. We were, of course, like every school, looking to try to identify a longer-term lease for a building. However, like we've really been grateful to our partners at Building Pathways to find a space that will meet the needs of our students for the year. We've had some conversations with DCPS to try to make sure that we have a strong partnership with them as we're co-locating with Excel Academy, and really hopeful that this is going to be the first of many right here for a Montessori school since the semester.
What kind of community engagement have you already started to do in Ward 8 and around that location?
Yeah, sure. So I think we've been engaging the community, I would say softly before we actually got approved, but after we definitely got approval, we reached out to all A&T members, made sure that we attended events, spoke at churches. We wanted to make sure we were holding orientations and open houses, and DPR, some rec centers. We have done door-to-door community engagement just to talk about the Montessori model, what it is, why we think it's important to the community as well.
How's your enrollment?
So right now we are at 79. We initially were looking for 88 students, but we have one classroom that's coming in. It's going to be a significant, I shouldn't say significantly, but smaller than our other 3 classrooms. So we've had to now kind of like lower that enrollment just a tad bit. We also have 30 students on our wait list as well.
Say more about why that one class is.
So we are co-locating with Excel, as you know. We are taking that bottom left-hand side of the building, and we are currently renovating that space to make it ready for our children. With that said, we have 3 classrooms that are pretty considerable in size, but then we've had one where we don't want to bust out the walls, again, because we're only going to be there for 1 year, and there's going to be a new school coming that next year. And so it just doesn't make sense. So
literally
instead,
a physical constraint.
Physical constraint, so we have to lower that enrollment.
Yeah.
Where are your students coming from? Where do they live?
Yeah, great question. So they are all over Ward 7, Ward 8, and a few from Ward 6, but the majority are Ward 7 and Ward 8, and the majority are right there in Anacostia as well. I think one of the exciting things about Bernie, and I would actually love to stay in Bernie, and I think the families would love to stay in Bernie, is that we have a lot of families that are within walking distance from our actual school, right? And so that's exciting for them because obviously we don't have a neighborhood preference, but the lottery has just worked out in their favor in that way. And then we have quite a few that are also commuting, but they're commuting from that neighborhood with, again, a lot of excitement about staying in Ward 8 specifically. And so I'm hoping that's going to happen. We don't know yet, but that would be the goal.
That said, I would like to take every opportunity that I can to try to encourage the board to try to promote some sort of at-risk preference or income-based preference in the lottery. We do anticipate as Ward 7 and Ward 8 change that's going to be an immediate problem for us and a growing problem for us in the longer term to try to make sure that that we're really opening the school to the families that we think need it, that are looking for it the most, that need it the most, and that would benefit from the most. So anything, again, and I know you guys have been thinking about that, but anything you can continue to do in that front would be, I think, important and helpful to us and others.
How are the other aspects of planning for replication, such as staffing?
Yep, so the majority of our school is staffed at this point. We have all of our teachers are staffed for the year, our assistants are staffed for the year. I think there's 2 positions that we are currently trying to staff for, which is a front desk assistant and 1 specialist teacher. One of the things that we wanted to do was reach out to the community to try to fill those positions as well, and so we have been interviewing applicants from that area specifically for those roles.
Great.
we've also tried
Hiring's
to...
gone really well.
Hmm?
I was just saying hiring has gone really well.
It's gone really well. And we've also been tried to be really intentional about about having the core team at our Brooklyn campus remain there and not decimating that to the point where it would have an impact on our Brooklyn campus next year. It's only one of our lead teachers that's moving over from Brooklyn to Anacostia, and a couple of other folks. So and then of course our leadership team will be flitting between the two a good deal next year to try to make sure that there's that support for the folks that are on the ground at both campuses.
Mm-hmm. And I think the only thing I would add to that is we have, like Chris said, we have about 4 or 5 people from our current campus coming over just to keep fidelity to the model, right? But like he said, we didn't want to bring too many people over. One of the other things that we tried to make sure we do was we tried to staff as we wanted to see diversity in our staffing, especially amongst our teachers, right? That's one of the difficult things about Montessori. We've been able to do that quite well. And so when we look at the teachers that we have, they represent the global majority really well, which is something that we're committed to doing.
Great. All right. If there are no other questions, we'll see you next month for a vote.
See you next month.
Yes.
Thank you.
And lastly, Statesman. Go ahead and introduce yourselves and get started.
Just do it. Sean Hartnett, CEO, founder, Statesman.
Raymond Wheaton, Vice Board.
This is a public hearing to discuss Statesman College Preparatory Academy for Boys Public Charter Schools amendment request to move its current location in Ward 7 to 4600 Livingston Street Southeast in Ward 8. The facility is located inside the P.R. Harris Education Center, which is a large shared school building. The school's new 2-year lease will go into effect on July 1. To date, we have not received any public comment.
Sean Hartnett, just wanted to say thank you. We've had an awesome year with these young gentlemen and are super excited actually to be able to go into a space in Ward 8 and stay in the neighborhoods that we want to serve. So be glad to take any questions.
I'd like to hear about how you've been working with Ingenuity Prep and NCP on having very different age groups in the same building and making sure that there's good interactions there, but also, high school is high school.
There's more work that needs to be done. Certainly much easier to do it with Ingenuity Prep. There's a long-standing relationship, so we just communicate all the time about what we think the needs are. We've also met all 3 campuses at least once to talk about logistics. Quite obviously, with all of the movement that's going on in the building right now, we're going to have to wait a little while and have more conversations about exactly what needs to happen when we know all of what is happening with the space. So, but we are all in good communication with each other. We talk. If there is a question, we communicate back and forth. All the operations folks are communicating on a regular basis.
Are they physically separate? Are there going to be
They're
locked
definitely
doors?
physically separate. We have been very clear that we do not want to share a space. Where we will be in the building is now pretty much locked down, but we're still waiting to make sure that all of the dust settles on that too. So unfortunately, we do have to wait until some more things kind of get figured out, but what we know is we're going there. We have a square footage that's kind of laid out, and we're pretty sure that of which floor it's going to be on. But
Got it. And enrollment for next year?
We are oversubscribed for 5th grade, so 70 students enrolled, and we are 50 students on 64 4th grade.
Got it. And how many returning?
So we have effectively 100%, which is we're not sure. Like when the move act, everybody is signed up, they fully enrolled, but this is a big move. It is a big move from where we are, and we are pretty sure that that is going to change once folks are dealing with it every day. 51 students have completed enrollment, 3 have left the state, and then there's 1 who's teetering on, Kip.
Okay, thank you.
How have the families responded to the new location, and what are you doing to help think about getting to the new location?
What we did do was the same thing we did last year when we had a change of location. We literally kind of mapped the distance, mapped the travel, and kind of communicate with families to let them know you got another 5 minutes, you got another 3, you're going to be okay. Obviously, for half of our families, they're elated because it's like right around the corner. And for the folks who are in Ward 7, those are the folks who we've had to kind of like talk to more. Everybody loves what has happened with the program this year, so they're all willing to make the attempt. We have not offered any transportation assistance. We've actually pulled the families together to have them communicate with each other about how they want to support. Lots of that happened this year, so we're kind of leaning into that again.
As I recall, while the exact layout and location of your school is still up for some question, you will be sharing an entranceway with National Collegiate Prep. That first, and that one would be going up to one floor, another to another. Have you thought about how to manage the interaction between your students and theirs during the start of school and the end of school?
So we've had one conversation where we've talked about our start time and their start time, our exit and theirs. So the 3 schools have different schedules, so it actually works out that it won't be that much of a problem. We also have some flexibility to kind of move our start time around if we need to make it a little bit easier so that we don't have to. We're going to do whatever we can to avoid unnecessary interaction, but we're also okay to be able to interact with their kids and have our kids see their kids. We're not afraid of that.
Well, I should say thank you to everyone who's been up so far this evening, who is either growing in some respect or seeking another facility so that they can grow. For both of you, knowing both of you now lead schools and also serve on boards of other schools, I just wanted to acknowledge that that work that you do in the larger community. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's also just worth noting that we have heard from 2 school leaders who opened last year passionately committed to serving Ward 7. Both of them are now moving out of Ward 7. They both have been optimistic and positive about the move, but I think it's worth noting that both schools would have preferred to stay in Ward 7. They both had identified empty DC public school buildings that were empty and continue to be empty. And so in many respects, these moves and the displacement for the students who used to be within walking distance of these schools is a real failure of the city to support these 2 schools.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
All right. Ozo, I think you're up next.
Good evening. My name is Ozo Numadem. I'm the school finance specialist on the financial and academic quality team. I'm here to answer any questions in this public hearing related to the fiscal year 2019 financial analysis report technical guide, or the actual related report. The most recent version of the technical guide does not have any proposed changes from FY18. To date, we've received 1 public comment as it relates to the calculation of days of cash on hand, which encourages PCSB to modify that calculation to include short-term investments and how we calculate it. We have not reached a final conclusion on our approach. However, we'll be considering the public comment and making our determination for the calculation, and we'll open it up again, extend the public comment period, and then bring it up to the board in the next meeting to finalize for vote.
Okay. So to summarize, the public comment that we received precipitated us revisiting our processes.
Yes.
So we anticipate another proposal, perhaps next meeting, after which we'll then set a vote for a future meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, just wanted to lay it all out. Excellent. I don't have any questions on the specifics of the change that you're making. But does anyone?
Okay.
Excellent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Ozan. I think we have Naomi DeVoe listed here, but she is not here. Alyssa, or Katie, sorry. God.
Good evening, my name is Katie Damon. I'm a manager on the Equity and Fidelity team. Tonight we are holding a public hearing about revisions to two policies, the admission preference policy and the student admission guidelines. We are proposing revisions to these policies for three main reasons: to clarify that local education agencies may opt into an intra-LEA preference, to update outdated language, and to align policy with practice. To date, no public comment has been received regarding these revisions, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a few questions. So first off, I understand that perhaps some LEAs are already doing this informally, so can you explain how that's working, because that concerns me a little bit? And then also, if a LEA opts in to have the intra-LEA preference, will it appear on My School DC as one of their preferences, the way sibling preference does?
So yes, it's my understanding, so I'll start with your first question. So it's my understanding from My School DC that right now there is no mechanism that actually allows for a student to kind of matriculate from an elementary school to a middle school to a high school through LEAs that have that full spectrum of grades. And so you need this preference to essentially matriculate from, for example, a KIPP elementary school to a KIPP middle school. And so the vast majority of where we see schools implementing this particular preference is there. Like when a student needs admission preference into a kind of natural feeder school through a network. We also, from what I understand, see a small number of students that want to transfer kind of at a non-traditional entry point when they move across the city, for example, or really struggling in one school, are really unhappy, struggling socially, that kind of thing, and want to transfer to another LEA. We understand that these numbers are very small, but that they are being implemented informally right now. It is listed on My School DC's website as a preference that schools are allowed to implement, and so what we are doing is just codifying it in our policy.
So right now, LEAs are doing that?
Yes.
Got it, okay. And then I'm confused by the sibling part of this. So if let's just say KIPP, for example, there's a KIPP 8th grader, his sibling is entering kindergarten at a different KIPP location, so that sibling is going to get a preference even though they're at two different locations?
Yes, it's my understanding. Yep, that's currently how it's being implemented.
Okay. Even though they're at two different locations, because I think the point of sibling preference is that they're at the same.
So let me clarify your question. You are saying that a sibling would get preference into the LEA that the older sibling is transferring into?
Well, let's take the LEA has both elementary schools and middle schools.
Yeah.
And so they have a sibling is at the middle school, and now they want to enter a elementary school that's part of the LEA, but they're not one is over here, one's over here. So does the sibling at the elementary school get a preference even though they're...
Does the middle school student confer a preference onto the elementary school student? It's my understanding that yes, that is how it's currently being implemented.
Okay.
And at times the schools actually, even though they are different campuses, in many cases they are actually in the same building.
Yeah.
Not always.
Not always. Yeah. Is anybody using the military preference?
Right now we have chartered, or we have conditionally chartered Learn DC.
That's the only one.
Yeah, that's the only one. Any other questions? No?
If there are no other questions, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
And Aaron.
Hello. My name is Erin Kupferberg, Senior Manager for the Financial and Academic Quality Team. I'm here with Pete Petrin, Data Analyst, and Melody Sampson, Manager on the team. Thank you. To answer your questions in this public hearing for the 2019-20 Performance Management Framework Policy and Technical Guide, or the PMF Guide. The main changes for next year impact schools offering pre-kindergarten through 8th grade. Our goal is to maintain year-to-year reliability, align with the STAR framework, and ensure reliability. Staff has engaged with a task force comprising the school leaders from schools offering these grades and other advocates. We have incorporated their feedback into our final proposal. To date, we have only received the one public comment you heard at the start of this meeting. In addition, Melody will talk about our adult education framework.
Hi, I worked with the school leader. Oh, this is not on. Hi, I worked with the adult ed school leaders that offer high-level certification or CTE programming to set a floor and target for that measure, which is a component of the adult ed framework.
Since the PMF guide was open for public comment, staff proposed one additional change regarding students who transfer to another LEA from a closed school. These students will be removed from student achievement measures for the year following the transfer. For a school with over half of their students from a closed school, the school will not receive a score or a tier in that year. Because of this change, we are holding a public hearing tonight and another public hearing at the July board meeting to make sure that school leaders have an opportunity to give input.
We're almost done. We will incorporate public comment received tonight and throughout the public comment period before presenting a final proposal for board consideration in September. We are here to respond to your questions.
Great. Thank you. I was listening to the details of all of the changes. In addition to the public hearings, what if any work is being done through task force? I apologize if I missed that, if you spoke to that. So working with the schools to actually solicit deeper feedback.
So we met with the pre-K to 8 task force twice in the winter and early spring to develop the proposal that is in front of you now. We incorporated their feedback and made adjustments and their feedback. Melody also worked with the adult education task force to implement the changes that are being proposed on the floors and targets. And then we've also, as changes have as the proposal has been published, the first round for public comment, we send it out to all executive directors and data managers to let them know it's being open for public comment. And when the change was made that we just noted prior to this meeting, where students from closed schools, we then re-sent out that to the executive directors and data managers to notify them of this significant change and that we were going to extend the public comment period.
There aren't any questions. I'd ask if you could maybe address briefly the comments that we received earlier from Mr. Boots.
Sure. So this is a similar public comment we received last summer with the technical guide from Eagle Academy. We met internally, and then we also held a task force meeting in October to discuss the proposal and some data related to the proposal. We dug in again to see when students are not tested or do not submit a testing score in NWA MAP, what are the demographics of that student? And there are a higher percentage of students who are at risk that are not submitting scores. And I know that is for a variety of reasons. We were concerned at that point and talked at length with the task force. We didn't want to just implement a participation rate if it meant excluding students who with a higher at-risk percentage rate. So we talked instead at that point and solicited feedback on making our full academic year business rule, the students who are counted in the measure, more robust, meaning that we made sure that the full academic year really could count all of the students who were enrolled at the school the full time. And so because the schools have ownership of their own testing dates and can move the windows and can retest students. So at that point, we did not propose a participation rate as was presented in public comment as one proposal. We also received feedback from the schools at that meeting that they were not all in favor of that proposed business rule of just including a participation rate, which also held us off of making that change because overall NWA MAP rates are a bit higher than the MGP growth rates. schools on average who end third grade and up below are earning slightly more points on the PMF, so we were trying to balance out that also. Do you have anything?
I would just add, and we're currently implementing a lot of those changes that we did approve at the November update for this school year, 2018-19. We're currently collecting testing windows from LEAs. We're adjusting their rosters to make sure the eligible universe of students is only based on those who were attending during those testing windows. We also incorporated LEA feedback around medical exemptions, adopting OSCE's policy for the state assessment so that students who were not able to take an assessment during that window due to medical reasons are also excluded as well. So we've been working on limiting that student universe as much as possible to make sure that the eligibility definition is fair based on the feedback that we receive from schools.
That being said, we are fully going to dig into this public comment again and assess it and decide what the next steps are, and we will present that to the board, what the next steps will be, along with any revisions to the board proposal for the vote.
Great. So if we get a new proposal in July and then we'll vote on it.
We're planning to vote in September. Usually when we make smaller adjustments based on public comment, we don't reopen it again for a public comment, but we will notify school leaders well ahead of time, see if there are any concerns before we move forward with just going to the vote in September.
And the vote in September is sufficient in terms of time, given that we've already started the school year?
Well, we always aim to do it sooner than that. That has been our month to vote on the technical guide for the last 3 or 4 years. We are working toward a summer vote, and we hope next summer we will see that.
Great. Any other questions? All right. No other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move into our public meeting. I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda. I do have one change, though. I've asked staff to remove the Washington Latin enrollment ceiling increase and replication vote from the agenda this evening. From discussions with our board members, there's some additional conversation, analysis, and data that we'd like to look into, so we're going to re-agendize that item for a future board meeting this summer. So with that caveat, if I could get a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I move to approve the June 25th, 2019 board meeting agenda with the amendment made by Chair Cruz.
Motion, can I get a second?
Second.
I get a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And I have an aye as well from Naomi Shelton via her proxy. All right, with that, second opportunity for public comment. Are there any public officials who wish to be recognized or any public comment that wants to be delivered before we move into the votes at hand this evening? Please.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kenley Okada. I'm a partner at Empower K-12. We're a local nonprofit that supports schools across the city in developing their data capacity. I'm here to talk about Monument Academy. We have been working with them to develop their data systems, and in particular, we've been creating a dashboard to look at individualized student plans. And these dashboards require a wide variety of data. So we are looking at, for example, emotional regulation skills. We're looking at staff and parent and guardian observation data. We're looking at behavior incidents, attendance, grades, test scores. We're looking at a wide variety of things to make sure that we have a plan in place for every single student. Now, we're also actually trying to use this to understand what it is that it takes for students with trauma in their background in order to be successful to access rigorous academics. And in order to do that, we need to gather data with fidelity. In my experience with the Monument staff, that's what they've been doing. They've spent an immense amount of energy and time in gathering data, such as behavior incidents, for example, and these other types of data. And that's so important for our work because they're trying to make the best possible decisions and they need information to do that. And the reason I'm up here today is that I'm concerned that the effort that they have been putting into that, in gathering data, may be used against them unfairly. Now, I'm not an expert. I haven't been part of all of these discussions, so I'm not an expert on this specific situation and the conversations, but I will say that behavior data across the city varies widely in the way that it's gathered and the fidelity that it's gathered, the way that it is coded and tagged. So level 4, 5, 6 might mean something different at different schools. Even the titles that they have about a particular incident may not capture the spirit of that particular incident. And so I would just urge you in not holding the effort and the good intentions that they were that they had in gathering data around behavior incidents against them, and instead to really look into to gather other types of data to have a well-rounded perspective on what is the specific situation at Monument Academy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. If not, Jessica?
Hello, my name is Jessica Taguding, and I'm a senior data analyst on the Equity and Fidelity team. Staff requests that you vote to approve revisions to the business rules which accompany the DCPCSB enrollment ceiling increase policy. The most substantive proposed revision would add mathematical safeguards to Indicator 9 to prevent the over-identification of suspension rate outliers as these rates continue to decline across the sector. A public hearing was held on May 20th, and no public comment has been received. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just want to make an observation more than ask a question. I just want to remind this body that we dropped Washington Latin from this agenda, but Washington Latin, I believe they have the second lowest at-risk population in the city at 6.8%. And even with such a small at-risk population, they suspend these kids at 4 times the rate of the overall population. But according to our enrollment ceiling increase policy, they would be eligible for an enrollment ceiling increase. So I just want to remind this body that this is a framework. We're not obligated in a situation where a school is under-enrolling at-risk students and suspending them at enormously high rates. We're not obligated to approve an enrollment ceiling increase under this policy. I just want to remind us of that.
Thank you, Steve. All right. If we don't have any other...
Yeah, I'll just mention that what you're voting on in terms of the business rules does not affect the disproportionality metric that you are mentioning. So they would still show the same data under the new rules.
I believe that if you meet 9 out of the 10, which they would under our current policy, they'd be eligible for an enrollment ceiling increase. And I'm not arguing against that. I'm simply stating that this is guidance for an enrollment ceiling increase vote. It doesn't obligate us to say yes.
That's correct.
All right. So can I get a motion on the revised business rules that Jessica just took us through?
I move to approve the revisions to the business rules for the enrollment ceiling increase policy.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I have an aye as well from Naomi Shelton. The motion passes. Thank you, Jessica. Aaron.
Hello. Sorry.
Hello again. Staff is opening the elect to adopt the performance management framework as charter goals policy to include additional ways the board may use its discretion during a renewal vote. By law, the board has discretion at a 5-year and 10-year charter review, but does not have that same discretion to continue a school not meeting its goals at its 15-year renewal. By including this new provision, it allows DCPCSB board to use its discretion when a school earns a 3-star rating on OSSE's star rating system, or most recently earns a score of 50 on the PMF to continue as a school if the school did not meet its regular charter goals. We are asking you to open this policy up for public comment.
For the benefit of the public, if you could spend a little bit of time talking about the star rating, because that is still rather new to all of us, and the rationale and some of the thinking that went through the particular incorporation of the star rating in this proposal.
Thank you. So OSSE, the State Superintendent's Office for Education, this last year released their first ESSA report card, which included an accountability framework, which they called the star rating system. It's a 5-star system, and it rates all public schools, charter and DCPS schools, on a 5-star system. 75% of those points come from the entire sector the school serves on the measures that are included, and 25% of the points are on specific subgroup populations that the school serves. So there is a subgroup component built into that star system. OSSE has committed to releasing the STAR framework this next year. They're committed to November, and they're aiming to release it every November after this. And it does meet the ESSA federal requirements. We took into consideration and had some discussions on including the STAR framework. We felt as a staff that a school that potentially has the PMF as their charter goals and might just be missing that average or approaching that average, but recently is scoring a star 3 on the STAR system, is a school that is still on the way toward meeting their goals, and this is another avenue we can consider, particularly because it does have that subgroup population. So it is a different look at the data to assess a school's academics.
So I have a pop quiz for you.
Okay.
Do you know whether or not City Arts and Prep would have met the 3-star criteria? And the reason I ask is, at our December meeting, they had a PMF score, I believe it was a 46, but because they were at the 15-year review, we were told we had no discretion in our vote, whereas Democracy Prep had a PMF of 20, and we were advised to continue with their charter because we were told that we tend not to revoke charters at the 5-year, and that was I think that was confusing for some people. So, looking back on that decision, do you know what star rating City Arts and Prep would have had?
I do. So City Arts and Prep star rating that was released was a 2-star school this last year, and I believe Democracy Prep was a 1-star school last year.
Thank you.
For the data last year, that was released in December.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Well, if no other questions, can I get a motion on the elect to adopt the PMF as goals policy?
I move to open for public comment the revisions to the elect to adopt the PMF as goals policy.
Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And again, Naomi Shelton has voted in favor as well.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Ozo, back again.
Hello again. My name is Ozo Namado, School Finance Specialist once again on the finance and academic quality team. Each year, DC public charter schools are required to conduct an audit on the school finances, which then end up published on the DCPCSB website. These audits are conducted by third-party auditors, which are chosen by a committee of representatives from DCPCSB, OSSE, and the Office of the CFO. DCPCSB analyzes and summarizes the information in the audits to produce the financial analysis report. The report is comprised of 3 different components. 1, the aggregated supplemental tables which show key financial trends within the sector. 2, an individual report card for each school. And 3, data related to each school's management organization as applicable. We recently published the FY 2018 FAR report on our website, which is available for public consumption. The report shows overall positive financial trends and financial performance, with 80% of our schools meeting all 6 key financial metrics. If we were to look at 5 or 6, that metric would then increase up to 92%. Across the sector, there's a total of $55 million of growth in total assets, while liabilities only grew by $16 million, for a total net change in $16 million. And as overall enrollment grew by 6.7%, and revenue grew by 976. Lastly, just want to note that schools received per student for facilities allotment. They received $3,193, which turned out to be roughly $141 million, compared to their actual occupancy expense cost, which is a net deficit of about $22 million. So there's still an opportunity for that number to grow to accommodate the total occupancy costs. But overall, positive financial trends, and the report is available online. Do you have any questions for me?
And that's the report we have here, right?
Yes.
With this talk about a bait and switch, that's a very cute photo for a financial analysis report.
I just wanted to highlight something Ozo said, which is that every school receives a per pupil facilities allowance of about $3,200 per student. We have added up all of the facilities allowances that all schools get, and we've compared that with the amount of money that all schools spend on their facilities. And the deficit is how much?
Roughly $22 million.
So our schools are spending $22 million more on their facilities than they are receiving through the facilities allowance. That's about $500 a student.
Yep. I don't have any questions. Are there any discussion items on the FAR report? Good trend line, good news. Thank you for all the detail there. No vote needed. That's just a discussion item for us. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, and Alyssa, if you come up and invite the group from Monument Academy.
Good evening. I'll start. I'll do the first speaking, but probably the least amount of speaking. So I'm really thrilled to be here with the staff. As you know, Monument Academy was launched with a single-minded focus, that is to fill a much-needed gap in the educational landscape, which is serving students who, because of trauma experienced as a result of neglect, abuse, community violence, and instability that too often lead to involvement in the child welfare system, homelessness, and juvenile justice systems often struggle in school, drop out in large numbers, and can wind up in the school-to-prison pipeline. It started with the question, what if? What if we could find research about predictors of success? What if we could integrate this in a school model to get better outcomes? Because there was no roadmap to follow, we've also been committed to welcoming those who share this desire to find a better way, including others' ideas, time, energy, resources, encouragement, and wisdom. There has never been a pride of authorship, just a deep commitment to staying in this work until we could create a successful, better option than the failed status quo. At Monument Academy, we actually saw progress during the second half at the school year in terms of academics, as evidenced by the findings of the PCSB staff in our QSR, and a sharp drop in the behavioral incidents, suspension rates, and lost instructional time over the second half of the year. That said, similar to other early stage startups, regardless of sector, it's no surprise that a time would come when we would benefit from greater experience, more infrastructure, and a support system to take the model from a pilot to systematic quality. This is particularly true for an endeavor that is both this important and this hard to do. It's for this reason that I am thrilled and deeply grateful to Friendship Education Foundation and the Friendship Charter Management Organization for stepping up and stepping in to take this work forward. I am so overjoyed, I didn't put "so" in my speech, but I am so overjoyed to be able to pass the baton to Dr. Jeffrey Grant as Monument Academy's new head of school. He is a DC native and a highly respected educator with 27-year track record, deep track record of proven results in instruction and turning around schools, including Friendship Below Pierce right down the street. And he has agreed to a 3-year commitment to full operational leadership of the school. One piece of many pieces of evidence of his excellence is the plan he has created for the school next year. Friendship Education Foundation brings over 20 years of experience from the Friendship Public Charter School Network and learning that has resulted from starting and growing a locally founded and grounded successful charter support organization and network, and is a nonprofit committed to supporting other school models stabilize and improve. Finally, I am very grateful to the outpouring of concern and support as we move through the various cycles of charter relinquishment and rebirth. Parents, school leaders, advocates, foundations, philanthropists, and those working in the trenches not only asked how we could, with little notice, put students out of a school that provided stability and wraparound supports with no plan for where they might go or how they would be supported, especially since many receiving schools have, despite best efforts, struggled to meet their needs. They understood that current measures of quality do not capture the entirety of this work or the need that we are addressing. They also asked, even more importantly, how they could help and what was needed to ensure our students and families could have continuity and stability, how we could mend, not end this work. Finally, they have come through to make this happen. They stepped forward with what they have, donations, letters of support, and more. There are way too many to thank. But what this experience has highlighted is that this work benefits from greater connectivity and collaboration. And one final point I want to make, and this is, I think, an area of broad support. One question that continues to come up as we move forward is, how can we afford to do this? This question shines a light on what is obvious to educational leaders working with high concentrations of at-risk students. This work is resource intensive and public funding is not adequate to meet this need. In particular, the cost of facilities in DC is the biggest challenge to this and other school models, and equitable support for this has been lacking. We heard this earlier as well. My response to this question is another question. Why do we in DC currently spend $277,000 annually in public dollars to incarcerate a juvenile, which is money poorly spent on predictably poor outcomes, while providing a fraction of that amount to schools serving at-risk students and seeking to interrupt the school-to-prison pipeline? The biggest predictor of being incarcerated as an adult is being incarcerated as a juvenile. Surely we can figure out what it costs to adequately resource this preventative work in schools, including facilities, and what incremental investment is required to support these youth for success. I am certain that it will be a fraction of the $277,000 annually, and that we will achieve better outcomes for our children and our communities in the process. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jeffrey Grant now.
Actually, if I can just interrupt. I think Alyssa had an intro statement.
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
That's no problem.
That's how I am at home.
I'll just quickly set the stage here.
Oh, I thought you were
No problem. You're excited? So as you know, at the May board meeting, at our May board meeting, the PCSB board spoke with Monument about several safety concerns at the school, and since that time, Monument Academy developed a plan to partner with the Friendship Education Foundation to stabilize the school environment and enhance its academic program. So while you will not vote on anything after tonight's discussion, we do hope that you will better understand how Friendship Education Foundation will support Monument Academy through this transition.
Okay, my turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't know if you've ever heard these words before, but I'm excited tonight to come in here and speak in front of you, speak with you. We're celebrating the partnership between Friendship and Monument. This is a huge undertaking, especially being a native Washingtonian, born in 1965. My mom actually grew up one block from Monument, 705 18th Street, so I know the history of the neighborhood. And this is an opportunity for us to address a myriad of issues that have been with us, I say since African Americans have come to this country, much less to the city. We need to address all children equally. And we cannot forget any population. And I am willing to come in and work with a population that is oftentimes forgotten. I stand on my record. I left my humility at the door tonight. I have to speak confidently to guarantee everyone in this room that we are going to raise academic achievement, address social emotional issues, and allow our population that we serve to be contributing, highly contributing students, people, adults to our community. Now, as you see, I don't write my speeches, I speak from my heart. Again, being born and raised in Washington, D.C., I observe the downward turn that black men have taken, as well as black women. I know I'm unapologetically an African-American male, and I want to make sure that we have opportunities to educate our children. Emily, I applaud you. I applaud you. I applaud the board to actually agreeing to open the school. My research is built around addressing at-risk youth and the models that address at-risk youth. The DR that came in front of my name was the result of me doing a 5.5-year case study for the George Washington University for a model that addresses at-risk youth. Now, this model looked at the reform strategies being extended school day, extended school year, small schools, small class sizes, strong parental engagement. Those reform strategies are actually being implemented right now at Monument, but it takes it a step further. I know for a fact, because again, I've dedicated my life to education, that learning does not end at 3:30 when the child leaves. The difference I've identified between the haves and the have-nots, to those who succeed have not succeeded, are the conversations that take place around the breakfast and dinner tables. We do not, as the adults in this room, all of us, we educate our children in a particular way. We have conversations with our children around the breakfast and dinner tables, on the weekends, in the car, about what's happening in the world today. We apply it. We do not make Xerox copies and tell them to do an activity sitting there and tell them, oh, sit over there and be quiet. Monument actually addressed that issue. They've put parents in a home and make sure the children go home to parents to continue the conversations, to continue the learning in a safe, secure environment. We have right now, we enrolled 38 homeless kids, 4 in foster care, out of the 100 students that we plan to serve. What types of conversations would take place if we closed the school? We should not be talking about closing any type of school like this. We should be sitting here collaborating, talking about best practices. As a practitioner, as a researcher, I'm always ready to get feedback. I've gotten great feedback from Mr. Pearson as well as others in the community to identify what we should do going forward. We should be celebrating the school that is in existence and be prepared to share what we've learned so that we can replicate this model throughout the country, because there are too many homeless people out here, too many kids in foster care, too many kids who are being raised in an environment where they are not receiving the proper services and support. Our kids have suffered enough trauma. We are not going to now separate in that consistency. Now I'm open for questions, and again, let's identify best practices. Let's walk out that door, come in our building often, contribute to what we're doing, and then ask me, hold me accountable. I'm ready for the task.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Does everyone else want to at least introduce themselves, and if you have anything to add to the conversation as well before we begin with any questions?
Sean Hartnett, I am one of the founding board members.
Ken Cherry with Friendship.
Keisha Morris, Chief of Operations at Monument Academy.
Great. Thank you. Board members.
So first, thank you, Dr. Grant, for your great enthusiasm for the school. I'm really glad to hear that. And I also wanted to thank everyone, the founding members and Emily, for the courage to bring this school forward in the first place and the courage to push through. So thank you for that. At the last meeting, we did talk a little bit extensively, actually, about safety. And with this new plan, can you talk just a little bit about what's going to change in the new school year around some of the safety concerns that were brought up?
Most definitely. First, let's begin with the physical enhancement of the building. We are making sure that we are going to have locks and alarms on the doors, just like we have on all of our friendship schools, so that egress is actually not easily allowed. We have alarms not only to keep the students in, but to keep others out. When I was there a couple of weeks ago, I saw some of the students' friends trying to come and get them to leave, but we had to protect that. We're also repositioning some of the staff members and hiring new people as school security specialists. They are going to now patrol the outside of the building, the hallways, and we're going to make sure that their post of duty is addressed weekly in our meetings, our weekly meetings with the Director of Safety, which is a new position there, as well as the school safety specialists who will be in and out of classrooms supporting students, supporting learning, as well as supporting all stakeholders who enter and exit our building. That's one of the things we'll address. But again, we're also going to identify and utilize the data that's collected with Fidelity. We're going to do a constant comparative analysis, making sure that it's coded well. We're going to then put it in the proper category and give the students opportunities in that DBT component that we have at the end of the day to address their behaviors. They're not all around safety, it's around misbehaviors, because we were all middle schoolers, and I know what I was like in 7th grade, so I needed feedback. So guess what? Let's give feedback to the kids, and then let's also make sure that our teachers feel safe, our visitors to our school feel safe, and we are going to be very, very good community members. I need you, ANC Commissioner. Come in. We're going to have book club. I need you to volunteer. And you know, we worked together when I was principal of Blow Pierce. I have my regular parent-principal breakfast. I engage my parents. I do my home visits regularly. We are going to make sure, and like I said, I walk and talk. I hit my hallways, I hit my classrooms, and I walk my neighborhood. So this is a tremendous partnership to guarantee that we are educating children to be very strong citizens in our community.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
A couple other questions.
Okay.
One is, I know you have extensive education experience in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Boarding is going to be new to you. So what are you doing to get up to speed on boarding and providing a safe environment around the boarding, a safe and loving environment?
Okay, well, we have already have house parents who receive professional development regularly. They'll be continuing to receive that professional development. We partner with Maya Angelou, which actually has a residential program, and they'll be serving as consultants and advisors throughout. We've also partnered with the Milton Hershey School, and they are experts in the field, and they're coming on board as advisors. We'll be working with them regularly. They're going to do a review. They're going to give us feedback, and again, we're going to constantly observe and review our practices on an ongoing basis. And I'm going to definitely begin looking for opportunities to go and visit schools, meet with persons who have done this well, and identify best practices. I am a lifelong learner, and this is just another thing that I can add to my CV.
That's great. One other question. What can we as board members do to help support you as you're kind of continuing this journey?
Hold me accountable. I love it. Call me here. I come monthly. I can give you updated feedback, tell you where we're progressing and growing. This is how I operate. I love to have feedback and conversations. I think you can tell I like to talk, but I like to listen as well. Two of these, one of these. So I take all of your information that you give to me and I utilize it. My doors are open. Come and observe. Give me that qualitative feedback. Those observations, focus groups, walk and talk with me. Come and do our book club. Come and read to our students. We want to be tremendous partners. Again, this is one of those efforts that everyone must observe to see this. We can actually address a huge need. Schools like this need to be in a lot of cities around the country. This is huge. This is a big piece.
I'm curious, just in your, sorry.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Just in the short time you've been working with the team, what do you believe were the reasons that Monument was facing challenges around maintaining safety and didn't have quite the academic achievement that they had hoped for? Like, what did you see that you immediately know that you...
Like I said, I'm speaking the truth. I don't know how to lie. One, I want to make sure the proper leadership is in place, okay? I'll fit that bill. One, I want to make sure every stakeholder in that building loves children. Not just children, loves those children, loves our children. Now, those are my babies. I want to make sure that they believe that their children can actually grade. Not just we're going to educate and we're going to not hold them accountable, push them out the door. I'm not saying it existed, but I'm making sure it doesn't happen. I'll read between the lines. I'm going to make sure that the data is now utilized appropriately, quality feedback is in place. Parents are a major component of it. The kids are going to be motivated. The kids are going to feel like that they can be great. That's what they need to hear. They've experienced a lot of trauma. Sometimes they don't have the adults in their lives to give them that information. I love the fact that at the evening program, that's where you had a level, that was the lowest levels of incidents were in the evening program because they went home to a loving environment. Things that we may have taken for granted sometimes, especially until we became adults because we were angry with our principal holding us accountable. But now you have a parent holding you accountable, having conversations, giving you feedback on your learning that's taking place during the day. When kids have a strong academic program, that automatically decreases behaviors. I'm going to show them how to do the effective time on task, how to engage children, scaffold, differentiate, do the group rotations right across the curriculum. Hands-on application. I have tremendous partnerships with Junior Achievement, financial literacy, BizTown, Solar Sprint Car, robotics. Middle school boys, we're busy. Men in the room can attest to that. We're going to hands-on. They're going to collect their own data to implement in math class. Utilize that energy. You're going to find out, you're going to calculate a math problem around your shooting percentage. You're going to calculate a math problem around how long it takes you to run around that field. You're going to have a concept of measurement. You're going to know about volume because you're going to do science. I was a science teacher. You're going to understand, you better utilize the conventions of standard English, decode complex text, access Shakespeare, access Homer. Homer. I had groups with me at the 8th grade to read Homer in the Iliad and the Odyssey children's version, where they identified that the scandal was nothing new. This was been happening for millennia. So that's how you engage children. It automatically decreases behaviors or misbehaviors when you have a robust academic program. When children believe that you care and love them and that you want them to be great without always having to be an athlete or a rapper, that's what they're going to learn, and that's what they're going to know. Exposure. They're going to access the memorials, the monuments, the zoo with the specific focus in mind, project-based learning. These are the types of things that are going to be implemented. I guarantee you. That's what took Blow Pierce from being Friendship's lowest performing school when I entered in 2013 to be its highest performing within 2 to 3 years and has maintained a Tier 1 status. It's what I've taken to every school. P.R. Harris, which you all heard about earlier, I was his last principal, but we went from 6% in mathematics to in the 30s, as well as the ELA. Walker Jones, I was their principal in 1924 when I walked in 1 year with the 41 and 38. Then I was asked to be director of families and parents because they needed me to spread the message that I do. Then I was asked to go to Ferdy Hope, which is now up in the inventory for charters. 10 and 12 when I walked in, doubled and then tripled the numbers in 1 to 2 years. Closed it, but I stopped. I got tired of being not coming in, building relationships and get the movement going. A friendship gave me an opportunity to build those relationships and show how to maintain that growth. And that's how I came to Friendship and stayed for 5 years. And then went down to Pine Bluff, where the state has taken over all the schools in the city of Pine Bluff. Took those kids, opened up a K-1 elementary school where they're coming from the early childhood centers. In the first year, we were in a grade of B, which was unheard of, using the Friendship way, which is now going to be the Monument way, which is best practices.
Go ahead, Leah. Go. Good. Thank you for all of this and for your enthusiasm and your experience bringing it to bear for so many kids. Can you speak to some of the kind of trade-offs you've had to make with building a budget next year with these multiple priorities around improving safety and security at the school with also improving the academics?
Well, we did not decrease the number of people in front of children, okay? We want to keep that consistent. We have a 15-to-1 ratio. Our classes running right now, look about a 12 to 13. In addition, our teachers, which is 75% of the schools in DC have the teacher-managed caseload. That usually run about 12 to 13 cases per teacher. We run around about 8 or 9. They're going to be managed well. I am not going to employ 3 special education coordinators for a caseload of 50. When 3 were not doing the job and 1 came in and cleaned it up, I keep that 1 and let the other 2 go. So then where I start managing my budget. I hold everyone accountable in the building, staff, students, and parents. All stakeholders are held accountable. If you're not doing your job, you don't work in the school because you're not helping children. You're not about children. So identifying the persons who are truly committed to the task of educating the children of Monument was my number 1 priority. So
that's 1 special education coordinator now?
Well, here's the level. So we have a director of well-being, a manager, and then a coordinator. But they all are going to show compliance. 6 teachers, 2 within the inclusion resource model, and then 4 within the resource model, 4 in the inclusion model. So that I teach right now, we're looking at between 40, and I always leave a little room because we have incoming students, and they may need to be evaluated. We assess and evaluated. I leave a little wiggle room to add to the caseloads, so that's already built into that. Making sure that now we built into it as well with the elective teachers, 3 elective teachers being full-time. When they are not doing the PE, the art, and the music, these degreed adults are going to go into the classrooms during the core content master schedule time, and then they're going to assist and be assistant teachers. We also have 3 assistant teachers along with those 3 elective teachers, as well as inclusion teachers, 4 inclusion teachers. That guarantees at least 2 adults in front of a group of 12 to 15 kids at all times. That still does not take into account the dedicated aides who come in, as well as the behavior support specialists. So you have a school safety specialist, you have security specialists, and behavior support specialists. And then you have me, as well as the academy director, because I live in classrooms. Okay. Okay, I rarely stay in my office. I live in classrooms because I get feedback, I model, I co-teach all of the time. And we're talking about really 12 classrooms. When I had PR Harris, I had 713 kids, so you know I had a lot of classrooms. And all I did, I think I'm the one that started that trend of wearing tennis shoes with suits, because I had a different color pair of Nikes for every suit, because I know I was in classrooms, I stay on my feet. But that's what I do. So making sure that the ratio of adults to children stays consistent. But I want to make sure we're not top heavy and there's a redundancy in services. If you cannot do it, I'll give you you can't do it at the level that I want. You'll get professional development training. If you're not willing to buy in and buy into that, then you buy your way out of the building. Then I replace you because my network is strong in the city of people who are willing and want to work for me. So I don't have a problem with that. Okay.
You talked a little bit about the special ed realignment.
Yes.
You know that at the May meeting we brought up the non-compliance around manifestation hearings.
Yes.
I'm particularly concerned about manifestation hearings because that is what tells us what's going on with kids, and we have to have those hearings to understand what we need to change in the environment. So can you talk about what you're going to do around? That's not, to me, that's not a compliance activity. Like, that's like a substantive activity.
Exactly. That's leadership 101. You have to know how to schedule properly. Knowing that, especially the population I serve, it is what it is. Sometimes you can't get in touch with the parents, so you schedule not 30 days out. Some people don't build in that cushion. We're going to look at our special education cases throughout the rest of the summer. You build in a 60-day invitation window. You send 3 invitations. When they don't come, you hold, well, let me go down. That's not the meeting. But manifestation, that happens the next day, if not the same day. I'll call my parents. We identify if there's a violation of manifestation of disability. That's to make sure that happens. That happens immediately, and I'm in those meetings right away to make sure that we remain in compliance, the students' needs are met, that they do not miss instructional time unnecessarily. I'll keep them in a place. I'll have a staff ready to do that until we make that decision. That happens. I was talking about the schedule and remain in compliance as well, to put that on there and make sure we meet all our annuals, biannuals, and triennials. We make sure we put a schedule in place so that you never miss a date. And I've had that conversation already with the persons in those departments, even before I get my contract. I'm just letting them know.
This sounds great. Your excitement is really encouraging. I'm a little confused just from the plan, what else FEF is offering besides finding you.
Okay.
Can you just, and I understand that you're going to be on the payroll of Monument, so what is it exactly that FEF is offering as a turnaround provider besides finding you? And we're very happy to find you.
I hope I'm enough, but we do have access to other resources within, say, the Friendship Network. We are going to give the Academy Director opportunities to engage in the PLC and building the leadership capacity. Friendship has with the Academy Directors meeting. I will also be participating in the principal meetings as well. We have a myriad of consultants. Yes, we have a myriad of consultants who work with the foundation. Robin Silver being one around mathematics. I even flew her down to Pine Bluff with those schools, trained the coaches and the teachers. We did Zoom conferences but also feedback with me and my operations. Like I said, Mr. Hintz has been in business for over 2 decades, and we're going to make sure that they hold me accountable. So, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this over 27 years, and I'll make sure that we're all on the same page.
I'm just going to add on to that. In addition to what Dr. Grant said, we'll be able to provide classroom observations and support, so they'll be part of our cycles of observations. We'll be able to support new teachers. I know that was a question and consideration, so we do have a new teachers university, and we have an ongoing mentoring program that lasts throughout the year, so we'll be able to provide those as well. We also have data cycles, so we'll be able to sit down with Monument and take a look at their data with the dashboards that have been created to discuss about instructional plans and how to take that forth. Also our financial management meetings. So something that we do with all of our campuses on a monthly basis, review our financials and go over and make sure that each one of our campuses are financially stable. So those will be some of the ongoing supports that we'll be able to provide Monument.
And Ken, when you say we, do you mean the Friendship Education Foundation, Friendship Public Charter School, or a combination of both?
Combination of both.
So maybe I'd like to pick up on that just in terms of better understanding this 3-year commitment. So Ms. Bloomfield started out by, you've made a 3-year commitment.
Yes, I have.
The Friendship Education Foundation has made a 3-year commitment?
Yes, they have.
Friendship,
Yes, they have.
Friendship Public Schools is making a 3-year commitment?
Yes.
Is that, but without compensation for the foundation or for the Friendship Public Schools, if I'm understanding?
The compensation to the foundation is below the $25,000 threshold.
Okay.
There will be no monetary compensation to Friendship Public Charter Schools. I believe my worth is invaluable, so it's a lot.
And that is the case for the 3-year commitment.
Yes.
Okay. And
they're
is
responsible for me.
Yeah. And you'll forgive me because a lot of this is moving quickly. And that is memorialized somewhere, or will be memorialized?
It will be memorialized as soon as possible. I expect to be on the books, even though I've been in the school since I've been granted permission, because I'm chomping at the bit. I need my data. I need to get my qualitative data. That's through my observations, my interviews, my focus groups. I need this information so that I can have a very good strategic plan. Actually, a great strategic plan. I'm not going in blindly and just say, this is what you need to do. I need to know the stakeholders' capacity, and we go from there.
And also just want to mention, know that it just isn't a one-way relationship too. We're also seeking to get information from Monument. So learning from the robust dashboard system, which we have been really working and trying to solve ourselves at Friendship, and also learning about the boarding experience too. So it is a two-way street in this endeavor.
And recognizing how sort of fluid and dynamic this situation has been, should you get into the first year and realize that a different structure is more amenable to the long-term financial sustainability of the school, is that an option? Is this a transition year? Is there, at the end of the 3 years, is the idea or the potential for Monument to become part of the Friendship Network? I know I'm asking a lot of questions.
I know, but
we're getting ahead of ourselves. I just want to
that's
understand.
how I feel. I don't want to get ahead of that and create a new narrative. Right now, the goal is to create a wonderful culture and environment and climate for the students and the staff, so that we can have consistency, continuity. We can have implementation of academics. I'm not thinking about that right now, but it's to develop all of the stakeholders within the building. So, I haven't started thinking of another way to look at it.
But we're not foreclosing on any options.
No, closing's not an option, and failure's not an option for me.
So looking ahead for your anticipated enrollment for next year,
yes.
At this point, what do you anticipate for full-time boarding students?
Yes, full-time, 100%. Mandatory. So right now we are going with 100 this year, and we're at 96 enrolled. We just had to open the myschool.org back up for that to come in, because we had to pause it.
So not partial 1 day a week, but every day?
Sunday coming in between 5 and 7, and depart on Friday at 4 to 3:30. Let me show it to you.
And that's 96, and the goal is 120, is it?
No, 100. 100.
Okay.
Full way.
And what kind of anticipated, you mentioned strengthen partnerships, and that's because you've had such a great track record here in DC.
Yes.
Particularly a partnership with whatever the referral agency is for students that have some uncertain living arrangements.
I've had a partnership with DBH since I've been a principal. I've had a full-time clinician from DBH, Rosemary Culver, Dr. Lovelace. I've always had partnerships with them. and we work extremely well together, and I want to continue that type of assistance and support, and also to make sure that the lines are open. We are here to serve, so if there is a student who has a need, we want to be able to support that child and the family. I've done a lot. I don't know if I shared this with you, if it's in the narrative. I was the principal who got Relisha Rudd out of a car along with her family. She was attending Furby Hope. I worked to get her family of 7 out of the LTD Crown Victoria. Sometimes they would sleep in front of the school. When I pull up in the morning, they would be to get out of the car as a family. I'll let them use the lavatory, and sometimes I had to find things for them to eat. So I worked diligently with the Virginia Williams home. I called several councilmen with whom I had a wonderful rapport. And I thought, when I put her in DC General, I finally found her safety. I remember her mom used to ask me, that's why I wasn't too upset with her. She used to ask me, can you at least take Relisha home with you on the weekend? Now, at the time, I was a single dad, and I didn't want the optics, so I worked harder. And I said, please don't ask anyone else to do this. So she actually trusted someone from out of that shelter. And when you see what could happen, I mean, that it hurt me to my core. It hurt me to my core that's what happened when you're thinking that you provided shelter, safety, and security for someone. So what Emily and her other stakeholders or partners decided to do, and we've spoken, and she said that was one of the engines that drove her. Then I'm like, I'm all in. We're visionaries. We think alike. We have a shared vision. So why not me? Why not? Why I'm willing to come in and do this. And if it's longer than 3 years, how long they will have me is where I'm going to be there. But I definitely made a 3-year commitment. We have to do more and better by our families.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'm still in finances, so it sounds very promising that there has been significant philanthropy raised, or at least committed in a pretty short time period. That's near a goal, but not quite there. What plans do you have to be able to close that gap, and then also long-term? That's not really a sustainable plan to have to rely on philanthropy to close operating gaps. What's the longer-term plan?
Well, I can speak to it. We would like to speak to it, but I know what I can do. One, we're just making sure. Well, again, we operate with 100 students. We still have a capacity in future years to increase enrollment, and that will just increase the per pupil funding, not just for adding additional classrooms, but if you have, say, with 8 classrooms times 12 and 13, we're right there at 100. But our 15-to-1 ratio, if you do 8 times 15, then you're looking at 120. But that's not adding additional teaching staff, that's adding additional funds. We know that it will increase the capacity, but just being able to hit that 15-to-1 ratio guarantees additional funds. But just in this year, we just want to make sure that we operate with fidelity. We want to make sure that we get everything right size, and we just level out everything and increase what we need to do.
Yeah, so I think to Dr. Grant's points, one key piece of it is the student enrollment piece. And so because we obviously stopped and interrupted at a certain point, we lost the momentum on enrollment. But also for other reasons, it's been determined that actually reducing to 100 students is the right way to go for next year. But in the future years, we would anticipate increasing enrollment. We were looking at 120 students going into this year, which was a good place to be in terms of short-term financial sustainability, and there may be opportunity to go slightly above that, but we wouldn't, that will be a decision that they will make going forward. That's one piece of it. The second piece of it is to reduce the debt. That's particularly we had to take additional debt to renovate the 3rd floor, and that's been the focus of a capital campaign. And we are close in discussions with an entity that may be willing to provide a significant match for paying down the remainder of the debt, and that actually is the biggest drain on operational funds, so over and above our per pupil allocation. And then we are also in discussion with 1 or 2 entities that will have, and we were very far down the path before the interruption when the decision was made to, consider relinquishment, but we were very close to actually closing in on refinancing of the debt, which would also have considerably reduced our capital costs. So that is a conversation that we will pick up. Those are the 3 pieces that really drive towards longer-term financial sustainability. As for the fundraising, I would say we've raised, we are up probably in the last 7 days have hit $1.4 million. So I don't think it will take a lot, and we have plenty of time to get to the remainder. And I think it's partly that this sort of essentially crisis created an opportunity for people to really express how much they thought that the school was filling a much needed gap, and that people were obviously very interested in improvement, but also continuation. And so the willingness to step up and do this has been really remarkable.
Okay, 2 more. Thank you for that, and congratulations on the success in fundraising so far. One question is, an anticipated enrollment next year, how many students of the 96 are fosters?
Now we were at 4 and then 38 homeless.
4 foster?
Currently, yes.
Of the 96, 4
yes.
are foster?
Foster kids, 38 homeless.
38 homeless, okay. Okay, and then kind of another path of governance. I understand there has been some change in the seats on your board.
Yes.
How many people are on the board right now? How many of them are parents? What's the plan to fill some of the open seats?
Speak to that, Sean.
I can speak a little bit to it. There are 6 new board members coming on. There are 3 of us who have agreed to a transitional year to go into to make sure that there's some institutional knowledge. There will also be 2 parents on the board. When that board, this newly constituted board, comes together, I think June 30th we officially transition. We will have conversations around how we want to move forward. So not all of that is figured out, but there will be 3 people staying on, and then there will be 6 folks who we vote. As a matter of fact, we voted on a slate this morning.
Okay. Of the 6 new and of the 3 transitional year, where do the parents sit in those 2 groups?
2.
Are the 2 parents part of the old group that's sitting on, or part of the new?
No, there'll be 2. Yeah.
No.
And they're current parents of students already enrolled?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And Ms. Brandley is currently or going to be the chair of the new board.
Did I read interim chair correctly?
I do so. Yes, I believe so. She is the interim chair.
So interim chair now, and then you anticipate her being the...
No. She will be, as of July 1st, the interim chair. And then we're going to continue to recruit board members and then vote on officers with everybody then in place.
Okay.
And it may be that she's...
It may be that she is, and maybe that she is not, but we will, like a board, come together, constitute, and then decide.
Okay. The precipitating event, at least for me, was when we sat down with the board in April, not the May 20th meeting, but in April we sat down with the board in the context of talking about the upcoming review and just wanting to be very transparent about what goals had not been met and what some of the challenges were. And it was at that time that board members shared with us, and I can only speak for myself, my surprise that there was such concern about both safety and financial sustainability that they were entertaining a closure. And I was joined by 1 or 2 of my other board members there. And that spurred conversations that we very quickly engaged with members of the board at that time, that then precipitated us believing, and I think rightly, at least in my opinion, that we needed to have a public discussion of this in May. At that time, there were a number of emails, outreach from teachers who shared the concerns of the board and shared some of the concerns that we were asking about around safety, their own and their students. I don't know if all of those concerns were valid or accurate. I have to believe that some of them were, and they were incredibly detailed. I don't know if all of those are teachers that will stay, that you want to stay, that plan to stay, but you're now stepping into that I know it's hard to even conjecture at this point, from what limited time you've spent there, what that work of healing and evaluating and building that team, some of which I would hope, and you said that some people are staying, maybe they're just the house parents. I don't know. So my question is, like, how are you thinking about approaching that? Because that is the hardest of work.
The first thing I did was thank them. I don't know how long you've been in Washington, D.C., but when I took over Patricia Roberts Harris in 2005, I had 713 kids in a neighborhood that people like to call third world because it was third in Livingston. I had between 150 and 160 special needs students, so many so that I had to have a third assistant principal just for special education. I lost a 7th grader to gun violence on the last day of school. I lost another student to gun violence. I was going to several funerals. I went to several funerals while I was the principal. I helped them find the body of one of my 8th graders because the students came to me and told me where his body was. Nobody could find him. The work is not just hard, but it's necessary. Everyone's not built for it. So those persons who are willing to do the work, I applaud them. When we celebrate, we build family. That's why when I celebrate and take care of my own staff, when I tell them that sometimes you're going to want to work a little harder, I'm going to tell you, work smarter, go home and rest and love your own family. Hug them, kiss them, appreciate them. Go home to your kids, they need you. So when I tell my staff, if you do the work with me, I'm going to take care of you in addition to taking care of the kids. And I mean it, and they buy into it. Every year, I've had the lowest teacher turnover rate of my staff and wherever I've been. That's one thing which I take pride. I take great pride in being a compassionate person as well as passionate. I was sharing that term with someone recently. I want to make sure that I take care of staff because the work is required. I came to this revelation back in '99. I was teaching a 4th or 5th grade class at Turner Elementary, and I was teaching about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And I started saying to the class, I said, you know what? Nobody's ever stepped up and done the work that this man has done. And it made me go home and think, and I was like, well, why haven't you done it? And it made me totally reinvent myself. I grounded my framework when I did my dissertation in symbolic interactionism. That's one of the framework of Max Weber and George Herbert Mead. So I started to model the expectations that I have, not only for my students, but for the adult stakeholders. And then I said, let me model what I expect. Let me model what I consider greatness. Let me show them that it's possible that a young black man from Northeast DC, Riggs Park, who was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth, we could do things to help our own community. So now when the staff members see that, number one, I love them, I appreciate them, they do the work with me and understand how important it is. Because guess what? Everyone can do it. It's bottom line. Special people come into the buildings. And I recognize that, and we're going to celebrate our work. Because when we turn the children into, I'm not going to say turn, when we take care of our babies, and they become productive citizens, then it's outstanding work. So one, I'm going to take care of my staff. I'm going to celebrate with my staff. I'm going to celebrate with my families. I'm going to find, I was listening to my ANC commissioner right here. This is no joke. I told you I left my humility at the door. I'm the one to put UDC in P.R. Harris. I went to the president of UDC, who happened to be in my fraternity, found him and told him, I can't send children home to all of the homes. I need to be able to send the children home to healthy homes. Come and educate and train the parents so that they can have jobs and be able to take care of their children when they come home. Be able to, because we did the research and we identified that right there around P.R. Harris, within a 1-mile radius, those parents were the lowest paid parents. There were more students being raised by single-parent households. There were more students being raised by grandparents. I then took that same mindset to Walker Jones and partnered with the George Washington University, and we did resume building. We did job training. I then also took that over to Furby Hope and partnered with the YWCA, which I also brought to Blow Piers, because we have to help parents, we have to help staff, we have to celebrate. Everyone is not on the same socioeconomic level. Everyone did not get the same education. We have to stop the cycle. But again, I feel that I've identified the staff who are ready to do the work, and if they're not ready to do the work, I have a very strong network of people who are ready to rock and roll for me day in, day out.
Thank you. Steve?
Excuse me. So these kids have really been whiplashed over the last 30 days.
Okay.
And probably for longer than that. So I just want to thank the adults on the stage and the Monument folks in the audience for looking out for these children. I also want to say that you guys have only been putting this plan together for 2 weeks. And when you consider that, I think it's a very thorough plan, and I know it's still in development. And I just want to remind everybody that as long as you're serving children, it's our job to support you, as Ricardo aptly pointed out earlier.
Thank you very much.
I guess as a board member who was with Monument from the beginning and now is transitioning to the new board, who actually participated in the conversations and, you know, the vote to close the school and then the vote to reopen the school so that they can move forward. I had someone said on the call this morning, this most beautiful thing, I don't think they meant it to be beautiful, but that, so we have this outcome that is a possibility right now. We have a very new outcome that is a possibility. The process lacked elegance. The process lacked elegance. And in the 10 years that I've been in DC, we don't do elegant well here. We just don't. We just don't. The conversations that we have mix emotions, mix outcomes, confuse people, and cause that oftentimes those who are less able to defend for themselves experience what you just described as whiplash. And so I am thankful to God first that we are where we are, right? And that there is an opportunity. No guarantee. I'm gonna sit. I mean, Emily will tell you, and I'm just gonna be honest. I will ride their ass to the end because we have got to do better for this group of kids. But you know, we were faced with a very difficult set of realities and made some very difficult decisions. That is the job of boards, to make those difficult decisions. I stand by it. And I stand by where we are right now. And again, apologize for the lack of elegance around the process and the fact that I can't find a way to elegance in anybody's process. But let's just all stand next to this. I think we downplay the power of enthusiasm and the impact that has in an environment where there is a morale issue. His presence in that building has already changed the morale of that building. And so I look forward to this year. It is a year. They have gotten me to a year. You know, but to see what can happen in this year, like I'm up against my own battles right now. We have had a phenomenal year, and it has been hell. It is not always elegant to do good work with those who need it. And so I want to say thank you to this board who pushed us, Board of Trustees in particular, who pushed us to stay in this fight just a little bit longer to see what can come of it.
Thank you both for acknowledging the role of the board, because I will say from our first interactions, the sincerity, the humility, and the transparency that the board was seeking was important, and I very much hope, to the point that I can insist that continue to be the posture of the board moving forward, because no one here is sitting and saying that this is not hard work, and I know personally I find it difficult to balance the recognition, as my colleague Steve often says, of how poorly served students can be and the many challenges they may often have, and how much of a moral responsibility we have to them, with at the same time the need to recognize that in particular in this charter community, that we need to use that as ammunition to continue to find ways to lift them up and serve them better and even better each year. And that's hard. And that's hard to both at the same time recognize the challenges that they have and really both hold high expectations for them and continue to push those expectations higher as we do for our own babies. So I appreciate I appreciate the enthusiasm, and I appreciate all the work you've all put into it. And the work has only begun. The work you've put into it and the work that will move forward. My other board members may have additional comments or questions. I want to ask one thing of you, Dr. Grant, is that I would very much love, amidst everything else that you need to do across the next 4 to 6 weeks, that you do make time to sit down with Mrs. Phillips Gilbert. And I don't know.
We shared numbers, but we know each other.
No, we know each other, but nobody talked to me at all.
So I just asked that.
Proof is in the pudding.
I already gave him my number. I gave him my new number because we used to talk with the old number, so I gave her the new number.
Sometimes. So I just want to make sure. Sometimes I could catch you, and a lot of times I couldn't. So I appreciate you saying thank you. Because I don't have trust after what these kids have gone through, what the community has gone through, and what I presented to you. I don't trust nobody. That's how I feel right now. It's a lot of talk, sounds good, but what I want the board to do, please take time and thoroughly go through everything they're saying. Because if they mess up, it's coming back on you. I'm telling you, this is too quick. Please review whatever they're putting before you, because it's those children. I heard the staff too. I talked to several of the staff and they were when you said that, they were extremely depressed. They told me stuff I didn't say to you. I didn't say to none of you. I didn't bring it out, but I'm gonna say this. They are very concerned. When you got people that's working with the children and the parents and they see what's going on, you better pay attention. This fast talking and this good talking, review what they're going to present to you. It is our children. Please make sure you review that. And don't forget the zoning part too, because I'm going to bring that back up. But please, for our children's sake, because I'm there, I talk to the parents. I talk to the neighbors who see the kids coming out the door, walking up to the street 11 o'clock at night. Oh, God. So, I appreciate you doing it for me. Thank you.
And we feel and we
but I just had to tell you.
We feel the weight of that
Yes.
as well.
Review that. Because I'm going to review that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all, and
thank you.
Not be the
and I look forward to you all coming over.
Thank you. All right. I have lost my agenda. All right, last item on the agenda for tonight is our consent calendar. These are a list of rather uncontroversial items, small changes that we approve in batch. Before we vote on the consent calendar, do any of our board members need to remove an item for any reason for additional discussion?
Okay. No, go ahead.
Okay. No. All right. If not, can I get a motion to approve all the items on the consent calendar?
I move to approve all items on the consent calendar.
Motion, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I have a proxy vote in favor of approval of that from Naomi Shelton as well. Any new business on part of the board? All right. If not, one last opportunity for public comment. Josh, you should know. No, okay. I just default to you at the end of the meeting. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the June 25th board meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and Naomi Shelton votes in favor as well. Thank you all.